So yeah, well, okay. Hello and welcome to this week's ADSN. I have never done this introduction before, and I didn't realize I'd have to before about 2 minutes ago before coming online. I need some more here. Yes, welcome to ADSN. My name is Curtis, and with me, as ever, is my friend and colleague Ionic. How you doing, buddy? You right?
Hello, I'm good. I'm here for the buzz, you know that. And a little bit more beard this week to try and compensate for the lack of Sun Warper. You know, I know we're missing him. It is considerably less beardy as a result. So, just trying to keep my side up.
Oh, I mean, I appreciate it. I think it's always very nice. I mean, it is the strength of our beards which kind of keeps this whole live stream kind of together. So
I've come to rely on them myself.
I appreciate it in its own right. Yeah, it's always nice. One thing I will say at the moment, Eon Lake, is that you can only see me on the live stream right now.
Oh.
We have me and you in the very tiny little corner of everything. And I mean, I'd rather see you than me. Let's face it.
Yeah, that's the way I want it. Nice and small.
That's what she said.
So what have we got this week anyway?
This week, we've got a lot to cover this week. Obviously, Sun Warper is away for anyone watching. Usually there's the three of us. There's only two of us this week. But Sun Warper is off on his jollies. And so what are we doing? We've got a little bit from what's going on in Shopify. There's new ideas of what's going on in Shopify. Brian Eno has a brand new album out. We'll be talking about that in a little while. We'll be talking about sync licensing and also quite a bit about drum sampling and stuff like that. But before we do, Eon Lake, what have you been up to this week, my friend?
Well, it's all been a bit mental recently, so that means I tend to do more ambient music.
Okay.
And Arturio have fished me in again with another update that I hadn't noticed for the Microfreak, which adds additional wavetable capability. I don't know how much there was. I mean, there was a wavetable mode before, but they've added some more stuff. And I also noticed while I was on the site updating things and so on that they've got a bunch of free libraries for let me see now, various different types of music, ambient, and there's a bunch of different styles anyway. A lot of them free, a few of them paid. So I downloaded a bunch and started, experimenting with that, trying to figure out what's what. That's one thing. Of course, I'm busy trying to finish my album at the moment. So of course I took on another remix because that's what you do when you're busy.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah. If someone asks you to do a remix and you're not got the time, what else are you going to do in that situation?
You go, yeah. I love doing it, and it's for a mate. So so I've got stuck into that. The good news with that is it's one short session, and I've got my usual wall of sound going. So it looks like it's going to be all right. So
do you have like a kind of a time limit on that, or is that just when you get it done kind of thing?
It is actually one that it needs done quite quickly. So it needs to be by the end of the month. Usually it's longer than that, but for some reason not.
Okay, I get that. I mean, I'm always one for a stippler for a deadline. When I did that one for Sun Warper for Glass Taurus, he was like, "Do this, and you've got about 2 weeks to get it done." I was like, okay, cool, all right, then you can really hunker down and get it done, you know.
Yeah. I respond well to being pushed, I think, but I am on holiday at the end of this month, so it's actually a lot shorter than I thought to do it. But you know it's like the best stuff happens quickly, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Last time I did a remix for this guy, it happened really quickly, and I was pretty happy with it because it turned into something of its own, which is kind of what I try and do with my remixes to a certain degree, and this one seems to be doing the same thing, you know. So I like it when things start to take on their own life a bit, you know, when you just give it a little push and then it starts rolling on its own. You go, oh, hang on a minute, I quite like this. So good fun.
it's a little bit special when that kind of comes through, isn't it? In a way that it just makes itself and it just kind of does everything it needs to get done. And you put little or no effort into it. You know?
It always sounds better when you can do that. I mean, I know this is myth of like slaving on something to get everything perfect, but I think it's a bit of a misnomer, really. Everyone knows that your best stuff happens quite quickly and effortlessly, and the work, if that's what it is just making sure you don't miss anything stupid in the process. You know, when you're going quick.
Exactly.
What about you? Have you been ambienting a bit to try and keep calm yourself?
I have actually. Before I get into what I've been doing, we have Shady in the chat. Hello, Shady.
Josh.
Nice to see you. All right, Josh, and we also have Bendu in the chat. Bendu, nice to see you, man. It's cool, isn't it? It's cool. It's nice to see people coming in.
Ben with us.
Exactly. These Bendu and Shady happen to be two of our patrons, which thank you very much indeed for your support. We love it. We do these live streams because of you, so we really appreciate it. If you yourself watching this and you're not a patron, you want to support us, consider going across to Patreon. Pledges start at $2 a month, and you get some early access, and you get your own special little podcast with some more for myself and Eon Lake, where we're doing some fun things over there. It must be said. Shady and Ben, there's a new Star stream coming out tomorrow. Actually, it will be out tomorrow, so it's always nice on that front. But yes, what have I been up to? Yes, I've been ambienting it up again, as you would say. That was a mouthful. Yeah, I've been doing the same thing. I work with a lot of MIDI at work, and I've actually gone back to working with live guitar and recording guitar properly, and creating ambient guitar tracks very much from scratch, like back in my Fila Math days, like 2018, 2017.
Computer as a tape deck sort of thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, completely. So like kind of doubling up on like my DD6, my DD3, and then my Blue Sky, or Big Sky, sorry, and then just kind of creating weird kind of stuff from there, essentially. I've missed it. Really have. Like, I've been going through and creating, like, okay, so I've been on like kind of like a trip hop trip for the last kind of like year and a half, 2 years kind of thing, very much kind of in the beats and the lo-fi kind of thing. And now coming back to, you know, no metronome, just kind of going with the vibe and making washed out synthy sounds. It's nice to come home. You know what I mean?
What do you like about it, though? One of the things I like about it is the music response aspect. So, you know, you create a sound that kind of starts it all, and then kind of everything else is a response to that, and a response to everything else that's happening. And it doesn't have to be on the grid or anything like that. It feels a lot freer, or a lot more natural, and for some reason more direct because of it. And so it just kind of happens naturally with me, and I like that. And then I like to go back and remove the original thing that started it off, so that everything in it is a reaction to everything else in it.
I know what you mean. Like, without those restrictions, and we're removing those restrictions of things like being on the grid and being on time, because what is time? The idea of just putting down things where they feel like, I don't know about you, I'm very much kind of the idea of when I'm making or when I'm creating the sounds, I just kind of, I don't feel like I'm not really the one doing it. There's something kind of inside me doing it. It's just like an intuition kind of thing. And so just that taking away from the metronome, taking away from the grid, taking away from time sequences and stuff, and time signatures, just gives that extra little bit. You're just going with truly what comes from within. That really kind of, it's really much a tick, you know.
Do you prepare yourself before you do it? I mean, I sometimes do, sometimes don't. Sometimes I prepare myself by doing something before, like I might meditate or do something like that. Sometimes I prepare myself a little bit by I'll record sounds out of the studio and then bring them into the studio, so that there's some sort of environment aspect. How do you get in the mood, or can you just rely on what's happening in the studio putting you in the mood?
Well, it depends. Depends on if it's a weekend or if it's a weekday. I've got work the next day. Let's put it that way. But generally,
or inspiration.
I might, yeah, there might be a toke or two involved. But essentially, one thing I in a similar fashion to you, I meditate. I meditate before I go in. And I journal. So I journal, I meditate, and then I go in essentially and basically vomit my innermost thoughts, anxieties, and feelings onto a page, clear my brain, and then go in and try and do something about that sonically, essentially. And yeah, I can't really do it. I do when you come to the production phase where you're looking at tracks and you just hit it up on like 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. That's the production side of it, and that's like, okay, I've got to do that stuff, but I can't. I have to be in that mindset. I can't really do it. I think maybe that's just me being stubborn. I don't know, but
Are you stubborn? No,
never. Nightfold is in the chat. Hello, Nightfold. Thank
Hello.
you very much for joining us today. We featured Nightfold on an episode of Binary Stars.
Yes.
Last week. No,
Fine
it was.
Tune it was too.
Yeah, it was a fine tune as well. There is a new episode of Binary Stars coming out on Saturday. Actually, Saturday. That's when I've got it for. It's already available to our patrons, as they say, they get early access. Yeah. But this Saturday, there is a brand new Binary Stars, which is another show that me and Sunwalker do together, where we're basically just trading tunes back and forth. It's good fun. It's really good fun.
But you can discuss, what makes a song good, what it is you like about it, what you vibe with. It's a good way to sort of exchange philosophical music ideas as well as hearing some good tunes.
It is good fun. Yeah, it is a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. Sunwarper is actually in the chat now, dragging himself away from Reading Prep. Hello, Sunwarper. Nice to see you, mate.
Hey, buddy. It's not the same without you. I told you.
We'll get there. The stream is up and the stream is running and we're doing well. So it's always nice on that front. So yeah, it's always good. So we discussed our own music. Let's find out what's going on with other people in the musical world, shall we?
There are others, yeah. We should probably do that.
Believe it or not, there are other musicians out there. So we'll move across to the news, shall we? There's a few bits and bobs that I want to talk about. Obviously, there's a little bit about NFTs. There's a little bit about pushing out the indie musician. So I'm going to start with this one for now. This is the story that Shopify has announced an investment in Single, which is an NFT marketplace, another NFT marketplace. And the reason I bring this up is not necessarily to focus on the fact that they are helping and pushing the ideas of NFTs. That's not particularly, I know we talk a lot about NFTs here. That's not what this is about. But what I want to kind of highlight is the fact that Shopify, one of the biggest e-shopping merchants in the world, they're getting into this kind of thing already, but also they're giving more opportunities for independent musicians such as ourselves to basically create a digital merch stand, which I don't know about you, I find very encouraging and very, very nice on that front. We recently saw them team up with YouTube, so you can now link your Shopify to YouTube. There's talks of them doing the same thing to Spotify, so Spotify and Shopify. And now they've entered the NFT market. So the decentralization, so to speak, of digital merch stands seems to be quite exciting,
Interesting to see all these strategic alliances being struck up. It's getting to the point now where we're going to have to start doing flow charts or some sort of organizational tree to show the relationships between them. Because Shopify have just... is it Spotify that they're affiliated with to provide the storefront for musicians there? I forget, but I'm going to have to start
YouTube and Spotify, yeah. YouTube and Spotify.
And now they've got an NFT association as well, so that there's that aspect of it.
It's going to be fun. I find it interesting, like I say, because so right now the biggest thing seems still to be Bandcamp. Which they take a cut from what's going on, and these people continue to take a cut. But especially that there's now more ways to enter things like the metaverse, and there's more ways in order to make sure that you have control over your own merch stand, essentially, which as an indie musician is really important, because I mean we're trying to get to this stage at least where less and less value is placed on the label, less and less value is placed on the guy above you doing the business side of it. I mean, labels are not all bad, but I mean, it's nice to do things yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It's all about what you can do now. I think if you really want to make a living in music, it means a couple of things. Firstly, probably most importantly, a portfolio career. So you're going to need to do a bit of everything, as our friend Sunwalker will tell you. And secondly, that merch is going to be part of that. As we like to keep quoting, that glorified T-shirt salesman and all of that. It's a joke, but
it's true.
There's an element of truth to it. And you can certainly, the value of selling recordings has fallen, but that doesn't mean there aren't. You can still sell concert tickets, you can still sell merch, and so on. You need to look at every opportunity as an indie musician, especially if you're looking to make that your sole income. So all of this it's useful, isn't it? It's helpful.
It's good stuff. And speaking of good stuff, Sunwarper just pops into the chat and says Eon Lake has rendered me obsolete, which is never true, brother. It's never true.
I couldn't drink that much coffee.
No. I mean, I don't think either is good. I'm not sure there's enough coffee in the world, so, especially on this side of the Atlantic, anyway. So yeah, not bad at all. We meet weekly, me and Sunwarper, to discuss things. And I think sometimes we miss weeks, but yesterday we missed one, obviously, because he's off now, and it's like there's a little bit of a hole in my heart. So hope he's doing okay. So
I'm sure he's managing.
I mean, he's going to be in Hawaii soon enough. So
yeah, lucky man.
Exactly. In other news, we have new things coming out from. Is it fair to say like I don't know. Can you say like Father of Ambient? Is that a thing? I know like James Brown's the godfather of funk, for example. Would you credit that to Brian Eno? Would that be fair?
He's definitely one of them, really, isn't he? Especially as far as actually trying to define the term when applied to music.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go with that then. Godfather of Ambient. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Now, obviously,
he's not here to argue anyway. He couldn't.
Yeah, exactly. We can just give it to him. Yeah, it's fair. So yeah, he's got. This. He has a new album coming out on the 14th of October, which is not why we're talking about this or bringing this up. But what caught my attention is that this is his 22nd studio album, which is quite a feat. 22, obviously, being a very important number. But also, the fact that he's singing on this album, which I find he's obviously listened to Sunwarper's latest album and gone
exactly. I mean, do something original, Brian. I am joking, of course.
Brian, taking from the underground electronica world,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really interesting to me because, like I say, 22nd studio album. He's been going on for years, and he's now coming out with some vocals on his new album. Which, I mean, way to try something new in your I want to say twilight days because I think it's a bit morbid. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you've been going for so long. Like,
I'd still be doing new stuff or trying to find new ways of expressing yourself after that long a career or that mature in what you do. I mean, it does make me wonder if he uses his oblique strategy cards, where it's like try something different, I think was one of them, when he's doing stuff, or if it's just they're an expression of what he feels compelled to do anyway. But I don't know. I've never listened to his music and thought, you know what, this really needs some fella singing on it. I've never thought that, but who knows? I mean, coming from him, he may surprise me. I don't know what I think about that, and I'll wait and see, I think, until I hear
That's
it.
fair.
But props for doing, what some of us try to do and stretch the old comfort zone as much as possible. I did try it myself recently, because Sunwarper gave me the idea. I'll be honest about it. Brian can't, but I will. So I did try. I got this thing out and wailed into it a little bit, and the results were very interesting. Very interesting. I don't know if I'll use them, but yeah. As somebody who spent a long time behind the glass partition, coaching people to perform to their best, I remembered quite how many things there are to think about sustaining notes, about airflow, about what area of your mouth and throat you're using to create sounds, about the width of your mouth affecting the pitch and stuff. It was just like, some of it was good, some of it not so good, and all mixed up in the same sections. So, I don't know.
All right. Well,
I think it might need a bit more work, and I'll try again in another longer session with a bit more warm up and stuff. But
we'll see. Well, I mean, you know where to send the stems should you decide that you don't want to use them. I'll take them off your hands because I'll remix the shit out of that.
Oh, they got some processing. Definitely.
Well,
they got processed and bounced a few times.
I'll put a gate effect on it and turn it into a psytrance track. How does that sound?
One of them did sound like some, I don't know, pseudo-Arabian, wailing sort of thing.
That's what you need.
Completely accidentally.
I love that. I'm still waiting. I remember a conversation we had about a year ago now about you dabbling in the beginnings of psytrance, and I'm still kind of waiting for that. To be fair. I really want to.
I love psytrance. I was a big old trance head. Yeah. And modular. I mean, I look at people like Martian Arts using modular to create psytrance, and the FM synthesis options are mental. And I had another little go recently, and I made some very crazy sounds. I will have a go at some point. Yeah.
I'd love to see
it's
it where that goes.
It's got to be good, though. It's got to be good.
I mean, you've got to make psytrance. I mean, you've just got to start making psytrance, and then the good psytrance comes through.
I think
all
it's
psytrance
funny because it's almost like the opposite of what I'm doing now. It's all got to be very clean and tidy and accurate, and what I'm doing now is all fuzzy and distorted and overblown and wispy, ethereal.
Is there not space then for like a fuzzy psytrance, like an Eon Lake analog psytrance? Is there not space for that?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I think you probably should try and inject something a little bit different into it. Any genre that's very formulaic like that. I mean, maybe it needs to be stretched at the sides a bit. Some new weirdness put in there.
I agree with that one. We have in the chat apparently. Well, okay, I missed this. Apparently Brian Eno sings on some of his earlier work. Apparently it's post Roxy, pre Music for Airports. And Shady says he'd love to hear you sing. So I think that's kind of got to make.
Okay.
We got to make that happen.
So no, I'm not doing it now.
We're gonna make it work. So we'll see how that goes. People in the chat, if you would like to hear Eon Lake sing, then maybe.
Yeah, we're going to set up a GoFundMe for that.
I'm going to put that on a Patreon to see that happen.
It's going to take more than mild encouragement.
Right, exactly. Moving along, this is actually a piece of news. It's actually we put in for a couple of ADSNs a couple of weeks ago, but we never came up on it. But I came back to it today because I stumbled across it, and it's a bit of an interesting one. This came out about the time of Stranger Things, so it's not news as such, but it does highlight the importance of sync licensing, which I wanted to kind of briefly discuss.
I remember this.
It is a bit of a mess, but for those who don't know, what is sync licensing, Eon Lake?
So this is where your music is licensed to appear in a TV show or in a movie or maybe on some terrestrial music program or something, or behind some the montage section of a sporting show or something like that. It's a bit of a money earner. I mean, a really good sync placement for a band especially in America, is a bit like getting a hit record as far as what it does to your sales and to your profile and so on. And never was that more clearly demonstrated than recently with the most recent series of Stranger Things. And this is the thrust of this particular article is talking about how it can be very beneficial to legacy artists, or artists, long established artists like, Kate Bush and Metallica, where, not only is it beneficial to their sales, but it introduces them to a whole new generation of people to appreciate and the music and so on. And that in turn, obviously, is now going to be discussed in various boardrooms around the world when they're thinking about sync placements and so on. So I wonder whether this is a good thing for the little people like us. It may not be a bad thing. I mean, some majors will be thinking, right, well, we've had artists on the books for years. They're not selling as well now. A good placement could maybe get them a new lease of life. They'll be thinking like that going on. But I think also the fact that that actually pushes the prices up for them, and it costs more to license somebody, like Metallica, biggest metal band ever. Even before this, then, it does give some hope to people like us who are a lot cheaper to sync. I remember stories about certain comedy shows in the US where somebody was a friend of somebody in the show, wrote a song, their first song ever, and wouldn't even perform it to them, facing them. They liked it, put it to the show, and the show said, well, yeah, this will cost us nothing to sing. It's a great song. We'll put it in the show. Everybody loved it. It was in a particularly emotional scene, and that person's 7 albums into a major career now, as a singer-songwriter, and that was the first song they'd ever written.
Wow.
And that was synced because it was cheap. It was an alternative to all this other stuff. It was like, oh, you've got a mate who's got a song. Oh, and it's actually quite good. We'll use that then. Save some money. So I don't know if that's if the more you get going on, the likes of Kate, who I'm pretty fond of. I always like that song. It's nice to see her come back. And so on. Also mean that by competition, there's still scope for indie artists to get some kind of placement and to make some money from it. It's one of the things that people are beginning to look at now, as it's looking at a portfolio career and how you can bring money in and wanting to be a professional musician. If you're not looking at sync placements, you really have missed a trick. It's a bit of a no-brainer. I've been registered for years with a particular portal or whatever. I've never had any placements out of it, but even I've thought of it, and I'm not I can be a little bit lazy about these things sometimes.
Well, I think it's an often overlooked aspect of our game in a way. I feel like we when we have a release, for example, we're always hitting up the radio stations, we're always hitting up the DJs and things like that, and especially in a world where we make a lot. Okay, obviously not everyone, but a lot of what we do is down tempo. A lot of the stuff is the underground stuff. Let's face it. That stuff is, like you say, not only is it cheaper, but it's really good for background scores and stuff like that. And so sync licensing is often an overlooked way in order to kind of add to your quiver, so to speak. It's just all about getting registered and going through the right channels. I mean, who is it that you're registered with?
They've been that useful in finding placements for me that I actually can't remember what they're called.
Cool. All right, that's good. That's what you need. So don't go with that one.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to find out who they are and then register with someone else.
Yeah, that's the best way to go.
It's on the tip of my tongue, but I just can't remember at the moment.
I mean, a lot of these days, distributors through things like Spotify. So CD Baby do sync licensing, for example, and this is what you pay for. That's why we always say CD Baby is a bit more expensive, but they have it through there, which is. It's always a benefit,
It's one less thing to remember when you get to my age as well.
Exactly. It's sync licensing is very important. That's why I bring it up. It's always, like I say, it's a bit of an undervalued kind of. People kind of miss it out when they go forward.
I've seen a lot about it recently, though, and things like these phenomena that spurred that article seem to be, reminding people about it, because I've seen a number of articles since then about, how to do this, why should you do this, what does it do for you. If you're asking questions like that, then you're pretty behind the curve. I mean, the reason's obvious, but yeah, there's a lot of resources that seem to have come out recently to sort of help you do that.
Yeah, I think increasingly, like when you first start out, like I've been a full-time musician now for 3 years, I think. Yeah, about 3 years now. And like when you start again, everything's about Spotify placements, or sorry, not placements, Spotify playlists, and then you find out about radio, and you go and find out about the radio and stuff. You think, okay, these things, that are going to help you to make a living from your music, and then as you keep going, there's always more. There's always like this. It's so diverse, and there's so many different. You can have your fingers in so many pies if you just learn to let it go. Yeah, it's important to kind of understand where you can kind of come from, how the diversity that you can kind of go through.
What I like is when those things start to come together and congeal into an underground movement of some kind, where you have certain radio shows, certain bands and types of people, maybe, the occasional gig and so on, a bunch of labels that have similar approach, but yet their own character, and before you know it, you've got quite a nice little scene going on there. And
yeah, completely.
There are many.
There are many scenes, and it's always nice to be a part of a scene to kind of see where you can kind of place your stuff and kind of move through. So it's always exciting. Before we move to the round robin, because we're about halfway through the show, it's 47 minutes past the hour. Do you want to have a look at something I've found for free?
Free?
Yeah, it's free, mate.
That's the price that we like.
That is the price that we like. We always like a little bit of free stuff here on Audionautic. It's not new particularly, but I just wanted to bring it to people's attention if you haven't known it already. I've been using it quite consistently over the past couple of weeks, and that is Vital. Have you seen this before?
No, just the way you said that is Vital.
Oh yeah, that is Vital. Yeah, it's true. We've all heard of Serum, and most people have heard of Serum. I feel Serum's it's solid in the VST world as a wavetable synthesizer.
I think it's illegal to make certain types of music without using Serum as well.
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, you can't make. I believe, for example, you shouldn't make drum and bass without Serum. That's what I heard. I think it's like chiseled in stone by a guy called.
Yeah.
Exactly. We'll have to see. But this is the free alternative. Okay, Serum is what, €200? About that, 200 quid.
Yeah.
200 euro.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can pay for it on a monthly basis. But then all the packs and everything as well gets quite pricey. Vital is bloody free, mate. It's bloody free. And it is a complex wavetable system, as you're seeing here, which is fully animated. I don't know.
Spectral as well.
So it's exactly. It's spectral. Everything is done. Everything is visual. It's beautiful. It's complex. You can do weird deep modulation. I mean, look at this filter modulation you've got going on here. I don't know what that is, but it kind of makes sense.
It's notching low pass and high pass and stuff all rolled into one, isn't it?
No, it's mad. It's absolutely mad.
I don't know what that is.
No, but it does essentially what Serum does as well. And it's a free alternative. And obviously you can buy packs. You can get packs for free. They have a subscription-based service if you want to for $5 a month. Basically, the basic is free. We get some presets and some wavetables. You can pay $25 and get more of both. Or if you went for the Pro for $80, you can get even more. And then you've got support, Discord, skins, etc. Which if that's the thing,
unlimited text to wavetable. I don't know what that is, but I'm really interested.
I bet you are. I was going to say you haven't bought any gear in a while. This could be your new thing.
What the hell is that? It's almost like scan your face into a sound or something. If you scroll up a sec though, you know what it shows you, like 3 different sections of the synth. Here we go. So this, I mean, to me, it looks a little bit like Serum crossed with Contact.
Right. Okay.
Is it like that? Do you have like modular parts of it that you bolt together and it runs through all of them, or?
You can do. It's more. I mean, basically, there's a ton of LFOs on there. I think there's about 6 LFOs on there, and you can assign them in certain ways. So as you can see, like these are. I'm pointing at my screen, but you can't see that. But if you look here at the cutoff and the feedback on this delay, you can link them to an LFO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be wrong not to.
Exactly. I mean, why wouldn't you modulate your cutoff and your delay time? Why wouldn't you do that at this stage? You know, it's 21st century. You know,
sounds don't sit still anymore. No way.
You can make it
modulate
work.
Everything.
Everything must be modulated. Everything must be modulated, and it's beautiful. The only thing about it is that it's quite CPU intensive.
Yeah.
Which I mean, if you're on an Apple Mac, aren't you? So I feel like you'd be alright.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how many of them you want to run at the same time.
Yeah, that's fair.
One for bass, one for lead, and then a couple to do pads.
Yeah, exactly. My poor 8-year-old laptop, which is dying, needs to I can run one instance of Vital, do a bit of sound design, and then it screams at me, so I have to freeze and flatten it. Yeah, render it out. But at my terminal in work, for example, I can have as many as I want, and it's beautiful. And the sound design is really important. If you need a cheap way and you want to get into sound design, or you're a big fan of sound design, and you don't want to pay for Serum, love a bit of Vital. It is always good fun.
Yeah, and if you want sounds that are bright and zingy, wavetable synthesis and spectral synthesis have got a lot to offer. Obviously, analog will give you warmth. Analog monosynths give you thickness and warmth and that, but spectral and wavetable can be really quite zingy and top heavy and have all sorts of bright, funny stuff going on.
Yeah, it's become a staple in my ambient stuff personally. Like, you create all the your washed out synths and your warm analog sounds, and then if you want a bit of glitch, because I mean, Curtis is all about space. Like, if you want that kind of glitchiness and you want that kind of textured sounds, then these wavetable synths are really good for that kind of thing. And they always throw a bit of ear candy into the mix. It's good fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I like sounds that inspire as well. I mean, I do like to do sound design sometimes and mess around, see what I can come up with. And other times I just want to hear something that I think, oh, yeah, I could do something with that.
Do you find yourself do you find yourself like flicking through presets, or do you just kind of always go from it in it?
Sometimes.
And then you mod them out in your own way, kind of thing.
Sometimes, yeah, I'll switch things on and off just to sort of, what's that doing?
That's mine now. Yeah.
What's the input into that? Oh, yeah, see, you're using the sawtooth. What does a square sound like? Oh, I like that better, yeah. So sort of, have a little rummage around. I mean, I'm not a snob about using existing presets, but I kind of think, well, where's the fun if you're not tinkering a little bit, There is a tinkering aspect to what we do sometimes, and I like that, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah, tinkering is always fun. Sometimes do you ever do like dedicated, not to borrow your phrase, tinkering sessions where you don't necessarily write, you got a synth or you got something and just kind of
sometimes I'll do sound design sessions. Sometimes like my Modal Cobalt 8 synth is the one I bought to do polyphonic duties. It's digital but has analog modeling and a shit ton of waveforms and stuff on it. I still don't know it that well, so every now and then I'll take it and some headphones and I'll go somewhere else and just sit down and fiddle around, write a few patches, get to know some of the presets in there and figure out what I like about them, how they've changed the effects in it and stuff like that. And I'll often come up with a sound that suggests a melody that when I put it back in the studio becomes a song. But I do like to set aside time that is just noodling and experimentation and getting to know things a bit better, especially equipment that's got an external input. If I haven't run anything through it yet, why not? It's rude not to use external inputs. You should definitely should.
If they have the facility there, like you say, it'd be rude not to, really. Think about it. Yeah, I mean, I'm in a similar vein. Like the sound design sessions are really good just for like a pressure-free sesh. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
How many
Like,
times do you end up writing a song by accident?
oh God, so many times. Like it's it's like,
Because I won't let
oh,
a
okay.
writing session become a sound design session, but I will allow a sound design session to become a writing session. If it starts to happen, then you got to let it happen. It's your job.
Yeah. But yeah, of course, there's a hierarchy here. The voices in your head, they kind of they
Yeah.
pull the strings, don't they?
And if they
That's
start
what-
singing,
yeah,
you're
and
onto
you just
something.
yeah, you just got to run with it, Like the happy accidents, to borrow Bob Ross's phrase. I don't know if that's trademark. Probably not. It doesn't matter either way. But those happy
Shit.
accidents where you might accidentally create a certain sound that you want to vibe with, and then just run with it. These tend to be the best songs that we create.
Mm.
Really, like if I sit down on a Saturday night and I go, right, tonight I'm gonna write a song. Invariably, it doesn't work very well. But
Yeah.
you've
But the
got to
thing
take it.
also is you need to explore your sound. And you're not going to write songs if you're trying to explore your sound. They don't seem to be things that you can't create and well, you can sometimes, but sometimes they will get in each other's way, and you just need time just to fiddle around and find new things so that you can then sit down and do something different and be inspired by it.
Do you find that as you've gone on, that okay, in the name of finding your sound, do you find that over time it's become easier? Has it become more difficult? Have you become more of a critic? How has it kind of worked out for you?
It's both.
So it's easier, yet you're more critical of what's going down.
It's easier and more difficult.
Right, because that makes absolute sense. Would you like to unpack that for
yeah.
us?
I mean, life is often contradictory, isn't it? In a way, it's easier because it's become an established way of doing things. The reason I started doing music as this sort of Eon Lake thing was to explore my interests, my sensibilities, the things that I like. And so really, it's just been like that magpie thing of going, oh, I like that, oh, I like that. Exploring anything that interests me and it becoming some sort of music that has its own identity and is an expression of that. Mm-hmm. So in a way, it's become easy because there's a kind of momentum to that, and it's become a philosophy and it's just what I do. In a way, it's become more difficult because maybe I'm a bit pickier. Maybe I need more variety. Maybe it takes more to get me interested. I don't know. Or maybe it's just a little too formulaic and I need to find new ways of doing things and shaking things up and so on. And, just trying not to do the same thing all the time or to do it the same way all the time to give some variety. So the more you do, the harder it is to be original because you're going to start repeating some elements of what you've done. But at the same time, you're still continuing to do what you always set out to do in the first place. And I know you'll appreciate that because, you're still going in your direction. You know what that is. You've found new offshoots and things to explore, but you're still on the same mission, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've got to get to Shoal. That's the idea. So we'll get there eventually. But how you get there, I'm not really quite sure. So it's always fun. But that leads me to another point. Like, we've talked about finding your sound and like kind of how it is important to I feel it's important to kind of have a not a trademark, but a thing that people go, okay, that's Curtis or that's Eon Lake or that's Sunwarp or that's Shaded.
You want it to sound like you in some way.
Yeah. And so when we start out, a lot of this is fine. Okay, what is my sound, right? What is it that what is that identifying moment? If you want to degrade the entire situation, what's that unique selling point, to put it in disgusting business terms?
See, I don't know. For me, I think it's got to be you. It has to be you, because I've got a fair amount of equipment sat here in front of me, and there isn't a single piece of equipment that makes a sound in here that can make a sound that I don't like.
Really? Okay.
They can make a lot of sounds I do like, and ones I feel in between about. And the way that the sounds are able to be shaped and evolved move me differently as well. So I'm one of these people, and I've always been like this with music. I've got an opinion about everything. And so what I do is an expression of that. I don't know. I want to say taste, but that sounds a bit arrogant. It's not taste. It's just what I like. right? You know, yeah, it's all the things I do like without any of the things I don't like. Do you know what I
Which
mean?
it's
It's
a great
everything that I've
combination.
ever
Yeah.
listened to and been inspired by, including some truly random stuff. I mean, I've been doing some stuff recently inspired by Iron Maiden that doesn't sound anything like Iron Maiden, but the way that they used to like using pattern and harmony and rhythm and so on. It, you know, watching Stranger Things, it reminded me of Iron Maiden when he held up the I think it was Peace of Mind cover or something. This is music. So I thought, oh, I'll have a little listen to that again. It's just all these songs I'd forgotten about. It made me do what I do that sounds completely different, do it differently. And it did make me realise that, you know, there are loads of influences in my music that you will never hear, but they are influencing my music. And I think I'm not the only one in that regard. Not all of them are audible, but they're all there, you know. So it's everyone you've been, all the music you've ever liked, every bit of kit you've ever owned, all the patches you liked, the ones you don't like taking. Your sound is so many different things.
That's a very, very what's the phrase I'm looking for? It's a very deep way of putting it. Like everything that's come before you, filtered through you, and put down in the DAW. That is everything that your sound is.
Yeah, it's like through a lens or a filter or
Prism or something like that. You know,
yeah.
Okay, so you have the sound and you have the almost the consistency of the sound, right? Versus the novelty of extended sound design and the extended kind of like exploration of new things, right? Getting away from the formula. You are very much a person who likes to get away from formula. That's what the whiteboard is for.
Well,
correct?
when I open my mouth, yeah. When I talk, but if you listen to my music, you might disagree. Yeah, I'm trying though.
Well, we get there. I mean, it's very from Deep State right across to their album out with Where a Foxma. Like that's very different in tone, very different in sound. But I mean, the dare I say the growth of the structure of like the kind of like that, you know, that you're starting small and going loud. So how do you? Okay, so the question is, how do you balance the sound versus novelty, creating new sounds and stuff like that? Or is that not much of a thing for you?
For me, there's sort of things that I try and influence before writing music, not necessarily during. It may come back if I'm thinking about what to add to something that's already established and has a vibe. So I might try and set things up differently, use some different sounds, or decide I'm going to do a different sort of structure or something like that. It may be something that I've written on the board and I'm like, I'm going to start with that. I'm going to do my thing, and then I'm going to look at it and think, well, how do I add to this? And it's only really at the input stage, and then when you're adding new things sort of stage, that I'm trying to push it in any direction. And even then, if it wants to go in a different direction, that's what's going to happen. You know, I won't, you know, try and force it anywhere it doesn't want to go.
Yeah, entirely.
But I find it's more unconscious. I like to think some of the stuff is just instinctive, and some of it comes from a deeper level, and not all of it is thought and the internal dialogue that on a day-by-day basis drives me crazy. Part of my music is trying to escape that, you know, and connect to something a bit deeper and let that guy, you know, express himself a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, completely. It's all very like, again, in a similar fashion for me, it always comes back down to just the freedom or the escape, almost like escapism. I've said on multiple occasions, music, this is like my therapy. The idea of just being in the moment with a piece of anything, and anything can come out from there. You know, I don't have quite as much gear as you, and the notion of the patching and the notion of where they go, like the set sounds are there, and there's a familiarity to where they're at. I really like creating RUPs, or what I call RUPs, rhythmic arpeggiators, or RUPs, you know, and what you can say it again.
I love them.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I mean, what you can take from them is the variety within that kind of, for me at least, the variety within that constraint almost. Like this is now 200 patches of arpeggiators, right? It's basically a big ARP box, because it's not very good for pads. It's not very good for pads. So
Right.
early on, I just took it away and just went, right, you're an ARP machine now. That's what you're going to do. And then creating that and then manipulating that through sound design to create different aspects and different textures within them. That's the whole other rabbit hole, which is like it's endless. You know what I mean? It's endless. And
Yeah, and I'm not using that many pads at the moment. At the moment, I'm doing more. The thing I've been using most for pads recently has been a Model D copy.
Oh, okay.
With just a shit ton of effects on it, so it's got a real sustained tonal sound, and layering it and just playing notes, and playing other notes on top of those notes, and you don't really need many before it's like a pad. You know, you can do it with 2 notes, just like particular intervals that you like above, you know, a song that's already happening. So I've been doing less sort of pads and playing block chords, and more playing a line over a chord structure and then playing another one over that, and that forming a kind of like a pad-like part that alters and so on.
I like the sound of that. I mean,
it's like music in parentheses.
Yeah. So you just kind of stack them up and layer them as they go, that kind of thing. I like it. I do the same thing with the guitar. I'm brandishing to my guitar down here. I stopped. I took the John Frusciante approach a while back. I just stopped playing chords. And I now just play single notes, lots of big sky, and just different like little repetitive notes, that kind of thing. A bit minimalistic.
I've always loved arpeggios. Always.
Yes. You just can't beat them, can you? And that's where they kind of come from. And they create. It allows you to intertwine them and create. Over the pad, you can create a pad. It is like a bit of a wall of sound, and you're kind of limited with where you can go, but those little intricate notes where there's space and there's pockets. I mean, you're a drummer, you know all about pockets, like sonic pockets, so to speak. Yeah. You can just kind of weave things in and out of each other. It's just, there's so many depths to that. It's quite entertaining.
I love it when a hanging note interacts with a note that you've changed in playing, and it creates an interval that really works. I like playing into effects, like you say. Hearing some of it bounce back and changing it to suit, it's great fun. You can lose hours like that though.
Yeah, it's great fun. We have Nightfold in the chat saying awesome synth started sound design with Vital. Okay, so it's a jumping off point. That's good. It's a very good way to do it, Nightfold. Again, sound design with Vital. You can really, if you don't do much, it's a great way to start off because it's all visual and it's very, very conducive, that kind of thing.
And you can definitely hear what you're doing as well. I mean, you change something on that and you'll know it.
Yeah, exactly. I've used a bit of Serum and I find Serum a little bit clunky, but that might just be inexperienced. But with Vital, I just took to it like a duck to water. So it's always fair. And Sunwarper is still in the chat. All right, buddy. And we got a little dinosaur emoji and RAPs, which I kind of like. It's kind of like that. More on RAPs in our Starstream episode coming out on Saturday.
There'll be a few there.
There's a few there. The Toy Box collab is taking shape. Guys in the chat, we'd like to know about your sound design techniques and what you guys do, if you do it, how you enjoy it, and why. Where do you start? What do you do? Let us know, because we're just 2/3 dudes who do this.
How and why do you structure your sessions? If you're not a drummer and you're a musician and you play an instrument, how do you structure practice versus writing versus sound design? Do they ever run into each other? Do you ever do that thing where you trick the monkey brain where you say, I'm going to do this, but you actually end up doing something else?
Exactly.
Let us know.
We'd love to know. Let us know in the chat. Let us know on Twitter. Let us know on Discord, wherever. Because we try and have a discipline. We call this a discipline, but let's face it. Yeah. I am very ill-disciplined, and I get run away with the fairies quite quickly.
It's a vague hint of a structure. Disappears if you look at it too long.
Exactly. One of these days, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll move on to the final segment because we're at 10 past the second hour now. There's 2 bits. There's marketing and there's round robin. And I mean, we had a kind of a bit of an extended discussion, but I don't want to. Sunwarper is the marketing guy, and I'm not going to pretend to step on his toes. Also, I'm with you. So we got about 5 minutes left. I want to talk briefly about sampling and about drum samples in particular. You're a drummer first and foremost, and I know that you've been doing a lot of sampling. Both you and Sunwolf have been doing a lot of sampling with the 404. I stumbled across a blog from the ever mighty Toman in the week. We pay thankful to thee, O Lords of Toman. And they have a whole blog. I'll put it in the YouTube chat so you guys can see. We have a blog from Toman that basically suggests about creating your own drum samples, because these days we have Splice, we have Lander, which fine, these companies exist where you can just download samples and they're pre-made and pre-ready to go, which is fine. I don't know about you, Eon Lake, but I always get a bit of a kick about making my own samples and kind of creating my own sound, again in a similar sound designy fashion. Where do you sit with this?
Again, it's like anything else. There are things I like and things I don't like. So I do like using out of the packet sound sometimes, but when I do use those, that means I'm probably more inclined to create a loop with it and then do processing on the loop, and then back that up with other sounds. When I need a big kick, I'll probably synthesize it. I'll use a kick plugin, or sometimes it'll be a sample, but sometimes it'll be layered to get the right tonality. Most of the time I find myself doing loop-based stuff, so I might just pull up a sort of a pad set in Ableton that I kind of like the general sound of, knock out some rhythms in that, turn those into loops and sample them, and then start using other things to punch holes in it. Emphasize certain, hits and so on, and give it a groove. Sometimes that makes me feel like playing the kit, and if there's a certain feel to it and I want to get that, I might play the drums and sample that in as well. I don't know what it was. Maybe I heard a couple of drummers playing at the same time when I was a kid, but I really like the sound of more than one loop occurring at the same time.
That's fair.
Layered drums, I do really like it. I do it a little more than I should maybe, but it's my rules. I can do what I like.
Exactly.
I can get criticised for it as well.
Yeah, it can happen in that front. Yeah, I mean, quickly shading the chat, coming back to the sound design, he usually sits and practices with the guitar, and he ends up writing something, which again is very much akin to the way that you're doing it with synths, I suppose. Like the idea of sitting around noodling.
Yeah, I'm not writing. Oh, there's a song.
And there it is, just like that. But yeah, so do you ever use weird samples, or do you ever use weird things that shouldn't be there and then end up being samples?
I like to the Digitact I use a lot at the moment, and I like how messing seriously with pitch and envelopes and stuff can make one sound into something else. I kind of like percussion sounds that maybe it's a heavily detuned hi-hat or something like that sounds like a weird clank noise. It sounds like metallic, like someone banging a lift with a frying pan. I like that sort of thing where you're kind of repurposing traditional sounds, and where you hear things in a loop where it's percussive and it sounds right and the pitch works with the music, but you're not really sure what that sound is that you're hearing, but you kind of like it. So I kind of like doing that as well. I do like some odd sounds. I like sounds that give, especially when you're doing loops, where it just gives it a little bit of character of its own. But I try not to do anything too much. The only thing I pretty much always do is have some sort of overlaid snare and kick and so on, just to make sure that those elements hit hard enough.
They really smack. Yeah, I get that.
The dynamics are there, and I do it a little bit by layering rather than sitting there trying to draw, loudness contours or anything like that. I either want to play it in or do it by getting the right feel and layering it.
I get that. Yeah, that makes sense. This one, right? That's what you need. I'm a big fan of in the name of traditional. I did a EP a couple of years ago, Knockout Noises, where I took pan hits from the house I was staying in Vietnam, and turn that into a whole drum beat. And I did the same thing with a door creak. Taking those kind of organic field recordings and then kind of fucking with them and arranging them in a certain way is really good fun.
Found
some of the
sounds.
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that was another one. Yeah, entirely. I'm not a very good drummer. I'm not a drummer at all. I have
Nor am I.
poor amount of rhythm. Well, you're better than me,
Terrible.
mate. I've got the beginnings of finger drumming right here,
Yeah.
and I can get a basic lo-fi beat. One of the reasons I make a lot of lo-fi is that I'm shit at the rhythm, you know. But then finding these weird things and arranging them and just kind of cutting them up, it creates a new something that you could never kind of achieve on your own kind of thing. And again, the possibility is endless. So it's really good fun.
Yeah. I like the Found Sounds. My first ever release, first track was Found Sounds.
Found Sounds.
It was on the board. That. I had to do it. I came up with a drum beat, and then it just happened after that. I like just having to explore like that.
Yeah. It's another room. It's in the name of sound design as well. It's another exploration, another growth medium. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Completely. Again, in the chat, we'd like to know how you, if you guys are sampling weird things to make your drums, what's the weirdest thing that you have ever sampled with? That's what I want to know. Oh, sorry. What is the weirdest thing you've ever sampled? That's what I'd like to know. And where is it so I can hear it? Because that's what I really want to know. You know?
Got a little Mutable Instruments gave me a little wooden bell with one of the modules that I bought because they like to have a little toy in each one. And I turned a little tiny wooden bell into a pad.
Nice.
That was
all right.
Even I don't know how I did that now because it sounds absolutely nothing like it originally did. But
I mean,
I'd like that.
I like to see where that goes. That's nice. That is about all the time that we've got for this week. We hope that you've enjoyed the show. Thank you ever so much for joining us live, and also if you're on the repeat as well. Hope you're well. Thank you very much indeed. We'll be back next week. It's been a pleasure to sit down with you, Howard.
Likewise, my friend. And thanks to all the people in the chat keeping us company.
It's nice. It's very nice. Very nice. So thank you very much indeed. We'll be back next week with episode 24. More to come. So yeah, until next week, Eon. It's nice to see you.
You too, buddy.
Take it easy.
Same time next week.
Yeah.